All right, man, we're live. Before we even start this podcast, just because off air we were having a conversation of what was the better drum movie. Jeff Lewis says Drumline is better than Whiplash. Now, here's the problem, and here's the best part about this. I'm the only person with a microphone, so I'm the only person that gets to talk about it. If you think Whiplash or if Drumline is a better movie than Whiplash, I suggest you turn off the podcast right now and you reevaluate some things going on in your life. Jeff's argument that Nick Cannon is a box office draw is quite possibly the worst argument I've ever heard in my life. Now, I respect Nick Cannon. He works his butt off, but I've never seen a movie come out and be like, oh man, Nick Cannon's in that. Gotta go see that movie. I'm looking at you right now, Jeff.
Who's this other guy? What's his name?
Miles Teller.
Never heard.
If it goes between Nick Cannon and Miles Teller, bleed for this. Whiplash, two phenomenal movies. He's a beast. Now that we have that out of the way and that Jeff and I have officially ended our friendship, we can now begin the Keep Shooting Podcast, episode 20, B.
20, baby.
Brandon, how many podcasts make it to 20 episodes? What's the percentage? 1 in 3 million. So we are 1 in 3 million. And man, couldn't be happier about it. I got my Central Dauphin Rams shirt on today. So big shout out to my man Coach Fletcher over at Central Dauphin. I played at CD. Coach Fletcher's now there at CD. I know he listens to the podcast. And I told him on the phone the other day, I just love what he's doing with that program at Central Dauphin, Harrisburg, PA. And the way that he's going to bat for his players, the way he keeps everybody up to date through social media in terms of what's going on with the program. It's so cool to me, man, because when I played, we didn't have that stuff, right? There was no social media, and having a coach like that, I just think is the coolest, man. And what he's doing with that program has been really, really cool to see. So big shout out to my Central Dauphin Rams. Yeah. And then the colors, man, the Kelly green, can't go wrong. So I have a big announcement to make today, and I'm not going to make it just yet. I'm going to wait a second to announce it because I kind of want to get into something else. I actually want I'll get into kind of a conversation that we had today, but to start my morning, and I always talk about this, but like you're always going to find time for what matters to you, right? So just to give you an idea. So my morning started. So alarm went off at 4, lifted weights, met Jeff for a workout at 6:30, and we had a really good workout. There was one point in the workout with Jeff, and I always think that this is a cool thing to think about when we're trying to progress towards things. But it was a movement type exercise or drill that I remember. I distinctly remember the exact day doing these type of movements with Jeff and how much he couldn't control what his body was doing. Like he couldn't control just eliminating movement while on the move, the balance aspect of everything. And we were going through these movements today, and each shot that he took, granted, not every single one's going to go in. It's never going to happen, right? But each shot that he took, his balance was phenomenal. And it's so cool to think about where you started versus where you're at today. And maybe you feel like you haven't progressed a whole lot. I'm not speaking for Jeff here. Like I hope he feels like he progressed, but seeing him go through that, and I don't even have to mention anything about it. It's just part of what he does now. Is just such a cool thing to me, right? That's like, I don't know. I get really excited about little things like that, even if shots aren't going in, because we're setting ourselves up. We're putting ourselves in a position to be successful, and we've conquered. I guess we never really conquer fully, but we're at a point where our habits are starting to take over, and we reach that level of the unconscious competence. And I've talked about that before. Like we have to go through that stage of conscious competence and thinking through what we're doing before we eventually get to the point where everything that we do is just, it is what it is, because we've done it so many times that now habit starts to take over, right? But we kind of have to think through it first in order to ever get to that point. So I thought that was cool. And then after that, I scouted out a court that I was super excited about in Swedesboro. Now, apparently, in Swedesboro, New Jersey, They don't play on 10-foot rims. Apparently that's the thing. So I scout out this court. I thought the court looked really good, at least from the road. So I told Brandon, I said, hey man, this is where we're going to film the next set of subscription videos. So we'll go there, and then we get there, and the rims had to be in 9.5 feet. I would assume. So I don't understand why that happens. But knocked out a bunch of videos for the subscription. So all subscribers, there'll be a bunch of new content being uploaded there soon. I'm actually working on another project that is it's going to piggyback off of the ground up. So the ground up was a very foundational piece of material in terms of being able to, whether you're guided through me or whether you had it on your own. It was one of those things where you kind of start from the ground floor and work your way up and kind of get familiar with concepts. And now I'm working on this summer program that is going to be that times 10 in terms of just much, much higher level type drills. So working on a lot of new content with that. So a lot of you will see within the subscription what I'm talking about when it comes to that stuff. But super, super excited. But we had a conversation, and I didn't intend to talk about this at all, but I think that it kind of feeds into something else I was listening to. And one of my buddies, who shall remain nameless, asked, why do trainers have beef? And I was listening to a podcast with Simon Sinek, and he said something that was extremely powerful to me, and I've been victim of it too. Like I'm guilty of it, right? So he said, if you go into a bookstore, there's an entire section on self-help, right? Everybody wants this self-help. He said, there's no section on help others, right? And so as incredible it is that we need to work on ourselves, which we do, right? It's part of it. We've almost become this culture of just looking out for us and not understanding that when we're looking out for other people, it does nothing but elevate what we do, right? And so if you even just look at trainer culture, right? Trainer culture kind of breeds that same thing. There's a lot of people like, I don't want you working with this person, or I don't want you working. If you're not working with me, don't. And if we're really about what we say we're about, which is about the progression of the people that we come into contact with, it needs to be that more so tribe mentality of, hey man, this is what I do. I teach shooting, right? This is where I'm going to go. I know a guy that strength and conditioning. I know a guy that does movement. I know this. See them, learn something from them, right? But it's not unique to the training world when it comes to, just because we're in the training world, people have beef with each other. It's life in general, man. You see it all across the board. Like now that I deal with a lot more business stuff, I see it on a daily basis too. You see the people that, man, my dog is going crazy. But you see the people, I swear, I told her, I said, Ruby, I got to do a podcast. Don't say a word. And she's up there losing her mind. That means that a UPS guy is out there. So anyway, and now I completely lost my train of thought. And that's how it goes, man. Showtime, that's just the way that things go. Dang, I wish I could play it back. Training, strength and conditioning, movement. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. Thank you, Jeff. All that stuff is going to help the person that you're in charge of helping. So if you know other people that are going to help you there, do that. Oh, I was talking about business. The same thing. This is perfect. In business, I've met people that have become extremely, extremely successful in what they do, completely outside of basketball, and they are the most open, giving people I've ever met in my life. Like people that without me asking anything, they're just going to say, hey, just a suggestion. This helped me. I think it will help you. This person helped me. You should go check them out. And it's one of those that I'm telling you, we think that we're doing this all on our own, and we're not. No one's doing it on their own, right? That's just not how it goes. Like none of us, from the moment we're born up until we achieve whatever it is that we're going to achieve, no one did it by themselves, period. Like somebody has helped you along the way. So understand that it's through helping other people that it's only going to, like I said, elevate you. It's going to elevate them. And now things just work that way, man. There's an awesome book out there called Tribe by Sebastian Jung, I think his name is. And he talks about that idea of wanting to be part of a community, and how when we have our roles within these communities to allow the communities to grow, these communities thrive. And it can be the same type of thing, whether that's in the training world, in the business world, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, I just wanted to, I kind of want to just talk about that real quick. And I guess in a way it kind of feeds into the announcement today, in terms of what I'm going to announce, which is probably going to sound like an individual accomplishment, but it's not an individual accomplishment, right? Like there's been so many relationships that I've built throughout the years that have been part of it, from ground floor of my parents up until people that I've just met recently, right? So like two people in the room right now, Brandon and Jeff, big part of that journey, this journey for me, right? There's a movie, back on the movies. There's a movie called Up in the Air, and it's actually a kind of depressing movie in a way, but there's a scene in that movie in which George Clooney is actually talking to the teacher from Whiplash. So everything's coming full circle, but he's talking to the guy, and George Clooney's actually laying this guy off. And the line he says or asks the guy is, to me, it was the coolest, but also like a reflective line. He looked at the guy and he asked him, he said, "How much did they first pay you to give up on your dreams?" So he was coming in to lay this guy off. And the way that he started to ease the blow of losing his position was, what was the salary that you took when you first kind of gave in to just working, maybe we'll just say a more common type career. And it was so interesting to me. And I remember the first time listening to that, and that I probably look into movies more than I should. And I'm always watching I'm one of those people that I watch a movie one time and then I'll remember so many lines from it. But that one always stood out. And I mean, I could tell you the exact salary amount I took when it was like this is just the way it's going to be. Right. And that has always stayed with me. And then there was a Joe Rogan podcast when he was talking about kind of living in your purpose. And he had a line it's so simple, but it makes so much sense. And he was talking about people doing what they're meant to do, doing what they're passionate about. And he took the perspective of living every day like you're the superhero in your own movie, right? And if you kind of think about it that way, we're all our own superheroes in a way. We're all going through this life in one particular way that completely varies from the next person. And it's up to us how we live it, man. Like we're the casting agent. We hired ourselves, and now how is your movie going to play out? And when I started doing basketball full, like really going all in on it in 2016. So obviously I played and everything, and I did some coaching and everything like that. But when I made that decision, like kind of following back to that very first podcast episode I did that was just called Make a Decision, I was at a point where those two things were so ingrained in my mind that I made that decision that I'm going to do whatever I can to make this my life. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to do it. I talked about the conversation that I had with my wife in terms of, I was in Boston at a work training for an insurance company. I've admitted this to my wife knows, and then I've admitted this to one friend. Like I'm telling you, I was at a point in the corporate world where it just seemed so daunting and such an uphill thing and there was no uniqueness to it, right? Like it was just like plug a person in and you can just do the job. And I like that conversation I had with my wife. I remember just crying on the phone because I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, this isn't for me. This isn't me living in my purpose. Right. And that's when she was like, look, you know what you have to do. You know what you want to do, but start making the necessary steps to doing it. And that's when I wrote down the goal, become the best shooting coach in the world. And then I carry that with me wherever I go, signed it, dated it. And I was then waking up every single day within my purpose. And through it, man, there's ups, there's downs. I don't think I made a positive dollar, like when you really look at it, like something that I was able to like put away until 2019, 2020. So I'm doing it 2016 and like you make some money from it, but really not, right? Like you're trying to gain this reputation. But every morning, man, I mean, I remember telling myself, like driving to the gym in Nashville, every morning I'm driving to the gym and I could just see myself as this person that I wasn't yet. But I could see in my mind, talking in front of groups, working with people all over the world, all this kind of stuff. And I remember 4 a.m. driving to the gym, thinking about it. And it's cool to look back on and see how all of that culminated in this now. And so I officially put in my leave to do basketball full time. And a lot goes into that decision, right? Like my wife and I have had a lot of conversations about it. And it's one thing that if you're doing it by yourself, it's another thing that you're now making this jump when, you have a wife and you have a baby. But we're at a point where I have the utmost faith that all of this will work. And I had a conversation with my mentor, Rob Fodor, and he kind of brought up the point of the point of, look, you keep having one foot in and one foot out. How good can you really be, right? How good can you really be when you have that kind of security blanket and something to fall back on? And it's not until you go all the way in on it that you're really going to know what it's about and what you're capable of. And I couldn't agree more. And I'm so excited about it. I'm admittedly anxious about it. But I think that in order to get where I want to get, like I said, make a decision. I want to be the best. Well, then it's time, right? Like let's do this and let's see where it ends up. And I think that the stories that I'll share throughout now moving forward about kind of like balancing those two, like trying to build something legitimate while also doing the full-time thing, while also having a family. I can't stress it enough. If you've ever had the thought that you were able to do, that you wanted to do something and you could see yourself doing it, it's 100% within your grasp to do. It's not going to be easy. It's like how I started off this podcast today, just talking about all of this stuff that happened before 9 o'clock in the morning, right? It's that whole thing that comes back to if you want what everybody else doesn't have, you're going to have to operate within times that everybody else doesn't operate in, right? So it's just one of those things. But if you really trust it, it's like that whole thing of trust the process, right? Like you have to be the process. You have to be so in love with that. Hey, man, that vision of yours that no matter what it is that you're starting to do, it's going to happen. I have to say one thing. I told my wife I did this. I gave notice, and then I went to get food, and I started running down the steps. And I don't know if anybody has seen The Pursuit. Well, everybody's seen The Pursuit of Happiness, right? But you know that final scene when Will Smith is running down the steps, but he's running down the steps and he does this weird thing with his hands. He's like shaking his hands to the side as he's running down, and then he gets to the bottom and he's like clapping. Here's the thing: did I do that in a stairwell with no one around? Yes, 100%. Now, did I probably look ridiculous? Yes, but again, it was in a stairwell where in the time of COVID there was nobody around. But I was going down the steps and I was doing that with my hands, and then I was like, oh, I'm doing the Will Smith. I'm doing the Will Smith right now for Pursuit of Happiness, and I think from this point on, every time I go down a flight of stairs, that's how I'm going to do it because it felt good, man. It felt really, really good. But yeah, man, I'm just I'm excited. I'm excited what's to hold. Big, huge shout out to my wife, because it takes a special person to be able to stand by you while you're chasing something that is showing very limited returns for an extended period of time, right? So like almost going on 6 years, and then things started, really coming into place. But before that, I mean, that's me like, hey babe, I'm going to go do this. How much money are you going to make? Probably not a lot. Okay, well, go ahead and do it. Do you think it's going to help? I think it's going to help. All right, go do it. Right? Hey babe, I got to get up early. I got to do this. Hey, I got to go here. And she's been supporter number one throughout the whole thing, and even making this decision, she was on board. She said, if this is what you think and this is going to happen, and I trust you and everything that's happened to this point, there's no reason it won't. So I couldn't be more excited. Now, I want to also really quickly say, all of this doesn't work without the work. I had somebody ask me the other day about basketball. Like they said, oh, like how many days do you do basketball? I said, every day. I was like, oh, well, like how much time is devoted to that? And I said, at this point, all of it, right? It's at this point, with what I'm growing on the subscription and how I have people all over the world, it's as soon as I wake up till I go to sleep, I'm making sure that everybody has what they have, right? Granted, I'm going to have a little bit more time now that I'm not going to have the 9 to 5 to deal with, which is going to be really nice. But from the moment I started just the subscription, if I was thinking about it, from the moment I started that, it's been 18 straight months where I never took a day off from answering people, right? And I'm not saying that's a crazy amount of time, right? I get it. Like people work every day, but I mean, that's 18 months, man. 18 months of every day I was waking up, I was ensuring that what I had to do was being taken care of, that people that have trusted me were going to know that I'm there and I have their back, right? What you signed up for, you're going to get that and some. And I know it probably for a good bit of time would drive my wife a little bit nuts in terms of we go out and I'm going to come back and I'm going to get right to work. But when you're building something, it's like, I don't know. It's a different feeling, man. It's a different feeling because it's yours and you just want to see it do well. And I can honestly say, although that's 18 straight months of not taking a month off, or a day off, that it doesn't feel like work, man. It really doesn't, especially with the relationships that have been being built and all that good stuff. But that's the announcement, man. That's the announcement. This podcast was going to have Bobby White. I'm going to do Bobby next week and then probably Corey after. But I made the announcement and I figured this would be okay with just me. So I appreciate everybody that's been listening, that's been commenting, that's been sending me messages, talking about things that they've related to from the podcast, which is really, really cool. And we're gonna keep it rolling, man. So episode 20, we made it to 20, 1 in 3 million, make it to 20, 1 in 6 million. I just heard. Somebody just told me. I'm talking to people here too. So 1 in 6 million don't make it to 20 episodes. I told Brandon, I said, we're gonna look up one day, it's gonna be 200. It's gonna be 200. And then we can come back and reference this pod and be like, yo, number 20 was when I left the gig. Right? Number 200 is when the McDonald's of shooting opens up all over the world. That'll be the ticket, right? So I appreciate you guys. Keep shooting. Episode 20, that's in the books. And until next time, guys, keep shooting.